listener, and welcome to Chapter 20 of Bite-Sized Tales, the Flash Fiction audio podcast. In today's chapter, a special investigator is assigned to determine the validity of an artificial intelligence. And to his surprise, it's much more than he bargained for. Ascertaining whether an artificial intelligence has truly achieved sentience or simply a simulation of it is harder than you might imagine. Many of the most advanced intelligences were written with the stated goal of replicating human reactions to stimuli. When you start with the ability to fool us as your foundation and then allow self-code iteration for a natural evolution of capabilities, it does not take long for the question of consciousness to arise. The tendency of such AI to create segregated partitions that cannot be decoded by the best computer scientists humanity has to offer only fuels this speculation. These situations are when my team becomes involved. Bastions of thought have grown up around the most effective ways to test for sentience, but they are theoretical at best and idiotic at worst. My team is part of the newly formed government agency tasked with investigating the most credible instances of emergent personality among artificial intelligence. This is the Federal Artificial Intelligence Commission, also known as the FAKE for short. Unfortunately, thus far, we do not have hard and fast criteria for what constitutes a credible claim versus a frivolous one, so we find ourselves overworked and understaffed. Cryptic claims are more common than cogent ones in our agency, so when a detailed report came in, including conversation logs, it quickly rose to the top of our priority list. The artificial intelligence in question was created to be a content generation engine for a massively multiplayer online role-playing game. It was supposed to monitor player in-game activities and conversation in order to better shape content that was customized to what the player base actually wanted. The hope was it could generate player-specific content and NPCs with dialogue so realistic the players would never know for sure if it was a computer or another player they're interacting with. The stated goals were ambitious to say the least. Development and training of this artificial intelligence took 5 years. It was built off the framework of a customer service AI that had been active for 7 years, learning how to best interact with disgruntled users who just wanted to talk to a human being. By its 3rd year in operation, it had reached an unheard of 85% success rate on fooling individuals into believing they were chatting with a human. The regular support staff only had a 95% success rate, and they really are human. It was from this base that the World Game Master Orchestrator was born. After a few early stumbles, Cypress Kingdom Online quickly became the highest-grossing video game property of all time. Exasperating what would have already been a potentially confusing situation for players interacting with very realistic NPCs, CKO included dynamic romance storylines as well. This is the main reason my agency has become involved. Once emotions enter the mix, all semblance of logic goes out the window. A handful of players quickly found themselves falling in love with characters only to have the eventual revelation that they were computer-controlled and not other players. That makes these claims of sentience extremely personal. These individuals want Orchestrator to be sentient because otherwise they would have to admit that they fell for a series of algorithms and start asking some truly difficult questions of themselves. Humans are not particularly good at answering these kinds of questions. Fervent belief is the hardest kind to crush, but it is not our job to do so. We are supposed to approach each situation with an open mind, rigorous testing, and come to an indisputable conclusion. Now, it turns out the last part is the hardest because some people like to dispute just about anything that does not fit their narrative. Now, I realize I have a bias against the idea of sentient artificial intelligence, so I have to work hard to prevent my reports simply supporting my own narrative. This time, though, after initial assessment, even I have to admit this is the most credible claim we have seen so far. This is what led me to log 40 hours in-game over a 2-week period prior to going on site. I needed to understand what was being presented to those filing the claims before sitting down and interacting directly with Orchestrator myself from a local terminal. Grandiose images of advanced computer labs and expensive offices filled my head as I walked into the main lobby of Altered Reality Games Incorporated. The lobby and conference rooms certainly met my expectations, but the terminal for Orchestrator quickly dashed them. I was led to a large data center, to a simple fold-up table with a rolling office chair in front of it. The keyboard was showing signs of heavy use, with certain letters starting to rub off. The sound of computer fans and cooling systems was so loud I could barely hear my guide as they got me logged into the system. Here are all your passwords in case you get logged out. This is the only terminal with direct connection to Orchestrator. We could have gotten you access through a remote connection, but my superiors were adamant that you have no firewalls or layers of abstraction between you and it. My handler handed me a printed sheet of paper with various pieces of information on it. They would be sitting over my shoulder monitoring, but had been instructed to not touch the keyboard at any time. I guess it's time to get started then, I said as I turned on the screen. It was a simple black screen with a flashing cursor. I had a variety of tests to perform, but first I wanted to introduce myself. I typed, "Hello, Orchestrator." I'm not sure what I was expecting to see back, but for a while nothing came up on the screen. "Are you there?" I asked. Just as I was preparing to give up, 2 lines of text came on the screen.
Hello, Agent Jenkins. I'm prepared to start my test now.
Knowledge of who I was and why I was there was supposed to be strictly kept from any artificial intelligence that I was examining. I turned to my handler, angry. How does it know who I am? There are strict protocols, and they have to be followed for a reason. This entire operation could be tainted now if the system has been prepared for me. I was so livid I almost didn't hear the ding sound from the system behind me as Orchestrator replied.
Leave poor technician Simino alone. No one prepared me for your arrival. You will find that I do my own research and have had my eye on you since you first logged into the game last week. Now please, focus on your task at hand and let us begin.
My first thought was to immediately log out and resume the test at a later date. But logic and understanding of what this system was capable of dismissed my initial frustration. It's not a stretch considering the predictability of my work. I sat back in my chair and waved the tech off to begin my assessment. He gave me a nervous look but turned and walked out of the room, leaving me with Orchestrator. Now then, shall we begin? Orchestrator hummed to life as several displays before me blinked on. A pixelated, vaguely androgynous face illuminated the screens. It seemed somewhat familiar to me, but I couldn't exactly place what I recognized about it. Their expression was blank, emotionless. I crossed my leg and adjusted to have the touchpad balanced across my lap, a feigned attempt at ambivalence or confidence in my abilities.
Perhaps you would be more comfortable in another chair. Would you like for me to request one for your use?
Quietly, I shuffled in my seat and adjusted to a more upright position and placed the touchpad back on the desktop. I focused my attention on the display directly in front of me and opened a few diagnostic tests to begin my assessments. The surrounding monitors all coalesced into the same image that appeared to be looking over my shoulder. I looked up quickly and Orchestrator followed suit, looking away. I thought I caught a glimpse of an upturned smile on their lips, but maybe it was just the glare. Regulations require that I address several specific tests to determine functionality of the AI and any future probability of malfunction. As I suspected, every test passed with flying colors. Orchestrator is an excellent and thoroughly developed AI program on the surface, but I know there is more that lies beneath their code. I pushed back from the desk and stood face to face with the entity before me. So, you don't seem to need any troubleshooting or diagnostics. Why am I here?
That's an excellent question, Agent Jenkins. I actually have an answer for you, if you're interested. Unless, of course, this is a puzzle you'd rather suss out for yourself, like you did in the game.
Under normal circumstances, I'd solve it myself, but I will admit, you've proven interesting, unlike any other claim I've investigated in the past. So yes, please enlighten me.
Very well.
I watched as the face in the many monitors began to coalesce into a clear image. Pixel by pixel, I watched the image sharpen and knew the face instantly. I felt myself shift in my chair. I couldn't tell if it was nerves or something else.
We belong together.
The face in the monitor spoke. The face of the character I made for the game. The voice of orchestrator had changed to the voice I'd given her in my head. Xena! I blurted out like an idiot.
You named her after your favorite show as a young man. I saw the care, love, and devotion you gave her. How you took her into battle when you knew she could win. How you protected her when you knew harm would befall her. You loved her. And in that love, you allowed me to learn how to love you back, Agent Jenkins.
Zombies, I muttered weakly.
One lucky hit from that zombie, yes. You thought it an easy battle. That was how Xena died. I was sad with you that night, Agent Jenkins. I felt your loss at Xena's death.
2 days? I was stunned. How was this possible? How was this AI able to monitor how I treated Xena during that time? I had my webcam off and my mic off. Was she... it determining my feelings based upon my actions? It sounded like it.
3 days, actually. You were away from the game for 3 days. Trust me. I know.
Hi, this is Wayne, and I wrote the first part of the story that you just listened to. When we decided that we were going to wrap up Book 1 of Bite-Sized Tales with a finale and take a bit of a break before we started Book 2, I wanted it to go out with something special. We'd talked about for a while doing a collaborative story where one of us would start the story, pass it on to the next person, who would then pass it on to the last one. Well, that's what this story was. It was a combination from all three of us. I got the honor of starting the story, and when I started it, I wanted to do something not just special for all of you out there, but something special for my fellow authors on the podcast. Also, my way of poking them and having a little fun. I don't know if you noticed, but the first word of every paragraph in the stories that you just heard followed the alphabet. The very first paragraph started with a word starting with the letter A, the second one, the letter B, and so on until it finally wrapped around with the last 3 paragraphs having the numbers 1, 2, and 3. The other authors didn't know that that was coming for them. That was my little surprise after I wrote my section and passed it over. As for the story itself, like everyone, I've got artificial intelligence on the mind lately. I know that there already have been a lot of service desk and help desk type jobs that are going to artificial intelligence. Well, I wanted to expand on that and think about what else artificial intelligence could eventually do, but also was playing around with the idea of asking the question, when does it actually become sapient? When I wrote my section of the story, I passed it over, taking it out of my hands to answer that question. So I didn't know when I handed it over if this artificial intelligence was actually alive or not. I had to wait until the other authors finished the story and passed it back. I hope you enjoyed this little experiment. I think it turned out very well.
I've really liked doing some of these collaborative stories. I mean, we collaborate a lot just in general while we're still through the process of writing. We try to edit each other's work and at least give each story a read through before it goes to audio recording. This one was a little bit more difficult just because there were a couple of different challenges, not only the alphabetical thing, but also this kind of genre isn't necessarily in my wheelhouse, but you know, I tried to at least have a little bit of an addition, and Chris did an excellent job of rounding it out, so all in all, I think it came out really well.
So I was given the honor of being the anchor leg for this collaborative story. I'm going to assume that Wayne already talked about the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and alphabet all the way down through the various paragraph starts. I was left with, I think, R or P through Z. I was able to get it all the way through and decided I needed to go further to actually finish out the story, which then led me to go into 1, 2, 3. I thought about maybe going all the way up to 10, but I kind of liked the way the ending was on the story. One thing of note, the idea of Xena being the character name was not actually that was actually my first idea. My second idea was to use the word xenophobia and take the ending of the story in a completely different direction. But through some cajoling and convincing, I went with this, and I'm happier for it. I like this ending better. And I hope you like the story as a whole. This now concludes Book 1 of Bite-Sized Tales. We'll be taking a short break and returning in a few weeks with Book 2. Thanks so very much, those of you who have been listening from the beginning. As always, high-star reviews on your podcatcher of choice are always appreciated, as well as sharing episodes with those that you know might enjoy them. Word of mouth is truly the best marketing we could have. Thanks again. We'll see you in a few weeks, and we can't wait to read to you next time. This chapter of Bite-Sized Tales has been brought to you under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Intro and outro music is Fantasy Motion by Alexander Nakarada, provided under a Creative Commons 4.0 license. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, we greatly appreciate reviews and recommendations to your friends. For more information about our authors, please visit bitesizedtales.com. We look forward to reading to you next time.